Israel is desolate, and her seed is no more. And Palestine has become a widow for Egypt.
What?
It's the end, my friend. The end is nigh.
Hello and welcome to Who Watches, a show about the HBO series Watchmen. I'm Travis Fishburne.
I'm Ryan DeVere.
And I'm Dustin Meadows.
And this week we'll be discussing Season 1, Episode 9, See How They Fly. And this is the episode that answers all of the questions and wraps everything up and just leaves us both hopefully satisfied and yet wanting more.
Almost
what do you
all
think?
of the questions.
Yeah.
We got no closure on Lube Man.
No closure whatsoever. Petey fell off the map entirely.
Yeah, that I was not expecting us to get into that one so soon.
We have to cover it.
The episode I did, it was the same reaction I had during the Red Wedding episode of Game of Thrones, where I was just like, oh, so I guess Tyrion's not in this episode.
Yeah, well, if we want to get into that, Lube Man, I think, is predominantly a Peteypedia like Easter egg character.
Yeah.
Because that is covered in this week's final
I was about to ask
entry.
if it was on Peteypedia.
Yep.
I very much assumed that's where it came from.
Yeah. Which I didn't know if there would be a Peteypedia because following the comics, after everything's wrapped up, they leave you with nothing.
Oh, yeah,
at the
there's no
end.
prose section after the last section.
So, yeah, there's a memorandum that's sent out to everybody in the FBI on Peteypedia. The subject is Dale Petey, and this is not him writing it, but Max Farragut, deputy director, informing everybody that Dale Petey is no longer an agent of the FBI, and his employment by the Anti-Vigilante Task Force has been terminated. So when they went and cleaned up his workspace, they found a ton of comic books, copies of Rorschach's journal, a jug of what appears to be some kind of canola oil.
Well, at least that question got answered then.
Yeah.
Confirmed, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go. That's really brilliant how they covered that, though, because he is brought into the story in such a dramatic way that people are going to go looking online for answers to that, right?
Yeah.
And so they'll inevitably find Peteypedia, so it very organically draws them into the extra resources.
Yeah.
Wow, there are some smart people attached to this here show.
Mm-hmm. No, I think so. No, I'm glad that it was addressed and answered and potentially opens doors for future adventures of Lube Man, at least. But in terms of all the rest of the stuff we got in this episode, how did it leave you feeling?
It was emotional. There was that small part of me that's like, Dr. Manhattan's not going to get killed. And then it's like, oh.
Yeah, you don't expect them to actually kill a legacy character like that.
Yeah.
But just like Luke in Last Jedi, they got to do it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's I'm like 70-30 on whether or not like he's actually dead. Because, of course, we've seen him reassemble himself after similar things have happened. And, like, Lady Trieu's clearly intelligent, but, like, what is it? He says to Adrian after he tries to kill him in the comic, he's like, you're just a man.
Yeah.
And, like, Trieu is just a woman. Like, she's just a person.
Yeah, the world's smartest man means no more to me than its smartest termite.
Yes,
is what he
yeah,
says.
exactly. So I'm not 100% convinced that he's out of the picture.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was intense. That final moment, especially when Angela asked him why he didn't send her away, and he just responds, "Because I don't want to be alone when I die." I was like, "Oh Jesus, okay, this is happening. All right, we're doing this."
Probably also, I don't know if she was standing in the blood either.
Oh,
Everybody
yeah,
else,
that's true,
I think there's a
too.
connection there.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I had no So it leads me to wonder. There's been rumblings about Dr. Manhattan and kind of the main DC universe. I think he recently got folded over into like they brought parts of the Watchmen into.
Yeah, there's a series called Doomsday Clock.
Yeah.
And I've never read before Watchmen or Doomsday Clock. I've never been interested in anything other than like the original Alan Moore text.
Yeah.
Which is strange because I was so excited for this show, which you'd think I would have similar feelings on, but for whatever reason, I don't know.
It feels different.
Yeah.
And so having never watched or read the comic, I didn't want to spoil that for myself. So I never read any of those. But I wonder what that means canonically. I mean, DC's never quite figured out what they want to do as a larger universe where Marvel kind of has.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if they would honor this kind of ending, because this seems like very much the continuation of the story. Like from the comic, this is the next iteration. I would honor it as such.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think the comics want to play with that character too much.
Yeah, that makes sense that they would want to do that.
Dr. Manhattan is the only like powered hero in the Watchmen, and with him being gone, that universe feels just very different. He's very much this out of place character.
Yeah, even though he's actually not present until almost the end of this run, his presence is still felt. He's like the shark in
absolutely.
Jaws, where
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, with him being absent, it definitely there's some kind of a void there.
When I don't know that you can have a conversation about Watchmen without Dr. Manhattan coming up in some way, shape, or form.
Oh no, I mean he drives the narrative of the original. Like, he's a huge plot point of the original, and I mean same in the show. Like Travis said, like he's not necessarily there throughout the whole thing, but like he's clearly affected things.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
from
technology's
building
different.
the Millennium Clock to like the presence of the phone booths, which we find out end up like serving some kind of purpose later on. Like, so it's and that's the thing too, is like it's not, as of at least a day or two ago, it's not been renewed for a second season yet. And Lindelof was quoted as saying like that, you know, if it does come back, like he most likely won't be involved. So part of me is curious to see whether or not HBO is gonna like try and keep this going, or if they're just gonna let it be what it is and call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could honestly see him going either way. Like obviously
we want
this
to force
was
it. We want to create a new IP here.
Yeah, and I mean, and obviously
The response has
it
been
was
incredible.
successful. Yeah, it was a huge hit for him. So I mean, I think as it stands, this season was perfect. There's honestly, I don't know that I want to dip back into this universe after
Not
this
for a
season.
while. Like I'm open to coming back in a couple years when, you know, somebody else has an idea like this.
For me, I think it was kind of a perfect storm of like all the right people being involved at the right time.
Yeah.
Like I think about it the way like a lot of people go back to the well on properties. Like case in point, the bad example is obviously Indiana Jones and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Like, and we've seen like, hey, what if we revisit this down the road? And it's like, oh, it's bad. That's what happens if we revisit it. And that's even with the same people involved that were there the first time, but like just all the things were in place however many years ago for it to work, and then this time not so much. And that's what I would be worried about if they tried to do another season of this, is just that the pieces wouldn't fit, or they would be there,
too
but it wouldn't be the
forced.
same.
It'd be half-baked. There are a lot of things going against a season 2.
Yeah.
Even if Lindelof is involved. I think another thing that makes this story so perfect is because it is a sequel to the book, which, you know, took place 34 years ago. So And the thing about the book itself and the plot and all the mysteries that go on in there is because it has a rich history that you dive into, and you get to see all these characters, and you get to see this big plot unfold. And they got to do that with this because, hey, we've had 34 years of this world and this history that's been altered. Let's dive deep into that, and let's explore this big mastermind plan of both Trieu and the 7th Cavalry, and see how it all like fits in together. If they extend that into a second, third season, what is the big, what's this big plan with the mysteries and the long-term setup that's been established? I don't think there is one.
Yeah, I mean, and they brought back so many of the major players from the comic too already, like, and we got to see them incorporated into the story in really interesting ways. Like, yeah, would it have been nice to have seen Night Owl in this season? Sure, but like, I don't care enough that I want a second season just for us to see what Night Owl's up to.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
And I feel like they do a good job, like, addressing those things, like characters that aren't there, like what their influence still is, and yeah, I feel like they'd be hard pressed to match this first season, hopefully this only season, let alone exceed that.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you there. I think there's also room for a conversation of, like, we didn't know about the cavalry before this show. We didn't know about Lady Trieu before this show. Like, a lot of the world that they've built out is stuff that is newly introduced as of the show. So they could theoretically just do that again or reshape it again. And the only reason, like, the cavalry got attached to the history of Watchmen in that it's from Hooded Justice's background. But we could learn more about Captain Metropolis. We could learn more about, like, there's always room
there's
to play.
Plenty of Minutemen that they get the short shift.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, how interested am I in that, I guess, is my thing.
Yeah.
Like Lindelof clearly had a story he wanted to tell, and he did it very well. And I think everything wrapped up perfectly, like everything fit together perfectly. Like, and they ended it on such a way that literally the only real major questions left are, is Dr. Manhattan dead or not? And did Angela get his powers? Like, those are kind of the big lingering questions that they end us on, which is great. And even then, I think a lot of that we kind of probably already know the answer to as well. Somebody pointed out right after the episode came out, and I don't know how I never noticed it, but like the main promo shot for Watchmen with Angela in front of the clock, like, she's bathed in blue light. And like that, I think we said on an earlier episode about how Lindelof, like, is very, like, blatantly told us, like, said is like, hey, this is what we're doing, and like that's literally is like, oh, hey, she's gonna be new Dr. Manhattan. Yeah, like, that's exactly what that image is saying. So I mean, again, we've got our answers.
Yeah,
maybe. I mean, there's the classic line of nothing ever ends.
Yeah,
like,
and speaking of Dr. Manhattan as well, he's something that really ties this to one season as well, because as long as Dr. Manhattan, and at the same time with how they leave it, leaves it potentially open for more, because I feel as long as he is around, you're kind of handcuffed to tie as much of a perfect story as you can. Everything has to fit in place because you have a character that can see the future and is experiencing the future and the past all at once. And therefore, stuff at the beginning of your show and stuff at the end of your show, it has to all make sense. And if you try to extend that into a second and third season with that character still around, it falls apart.
Absolutely.
So, they kind of potentially free themselves of that burden, and, who knows if he can still be around, what these experiences have done to his powers, what are Angela's own experiences with his, powers and persona, and what can she do or not do, and experience or not experience as well, is another interesting question.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do we want to walk through the episode?
Yeah, let's actually get into
getting
it.
real messy, and it's like it was always gonna be.
Yeah. So we open on a flashback of Karnak in Antarctica on November 1st, 1985. And while Adrian Veidt is shooting his message to President Redford, we see a cleaning lady enter his office. She extracts a vial of Adrian's semen from a refrigerated safe and injects it into herself while cursing a portrait of him. Or Alexander the Great. They kind of are interchangeable.
Yeah, they definitely made him look very similar.
Mm-hmm. So right off the
How
bat,
about an opening? Yeah.
yeah. I was like, oh, we're seeing November 1st again. This is exciting.
Mhm.
Oh, they're the Vietnamese refugees. And then as soon as they showed that, I told Sarah, I was like, oh, that's Trieu's mom right there.
Yep, that was my thought as well.
Yeah.
So he's standing when he's recording. He's standing in front of the alien, the
Mhm.
squid, right?
Yeah, he is. Which that was a question we had previously: is where the squid was being housed before it got sent, and it's pretty much confirmed
Karnak.
here
Yeah,
that
yeah.
he held it there and sent it from
Just
there
chilling
as well.
in Karnak until
Mhm.
it was time.
So I mean, Lady Trieu's mom had to
Mhm.
had to have been fairly intelligent of her own to figure
Hatch
this out.
the
She
scheme,
got
yeah.
passwords. She got I mean, she had access. That
Yeah, same password he uses in the comic.
Mm-hmm.
is it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ramesses
Well, I
the
like too
second.
that to access the password, the prompt command is untie the knot.
Yeah.
Which of course refers to the Gordian knot riddle that he talks about from Alexander the Great. Which I thought was a nice little touch.
Mm-hmm. Ton of fun Easter eggs are still playing with
Mm-hmm.
and throwing in here.
Yeah. Is the the sperm wall, is that referenced at all from the comic?
No.
No, that's
Mm-mm.
entirely a show thing.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, and he'll touch on it later. Adrian talks about it
Yeah.
more later,
Mhm.
but like, you could definitely see him doing this. This is a contingency. This is everything happens according to plan.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, and especially just like his ego, like just how highly he thinks of himself is like, yeah, why wouldn't you have stored samples of your genetic material in case down the road you wanted to clone yourself or have off children or whatever?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then after we see that, we go to 2008 and we see Lady Trieu arrive at Karnak, and she tells Adrian about what he did in 1985. Which he claims is ridiculous, and she said only the smartest man in the world would come up with it, and she says that she's the smartest woman in the world and just wants to thank him for saving it, which obviously, gets him interested, so he invites her in for tea, and she tells him that his plan can only work for so long, and that she has a plan that could ensure the world's salvation, which involves transferring Dr. Manhattan's power onto her. So she asks for $42 billion and reveals that she is his daughter. And he tells her that she has to work from nothing to gain the power that she wants, and tells her that he will never call her his daughter.
Which, I mean, that was the moment that I felt like we got the answer about what he wrote
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
on
Yeah.
Europa.
Oh yeah. Well, and then of course we get it confirmed later as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, that scene actually did not play out necessarily the way that I thought it was going to.
Oh, you thought they would be
I-
more collaborative?
I was like, part of me was like, I wasn't surprised that Adrian pushed back. I was like, yeah, that seems like a very him thing to do. But like, part of me was kind of wondering. I was like, oh, is this the moment where we find out they're in cahoots? And I was
Mhm.
like, not so much.
Yeah. No, you'd think he would be more intrigued and invite her in. But he's always looking for that worthy adversary, as we
Yeah.
find out.
So we also kind of get an answer here early in the show. It's like we get a news snippet that like Lady Trieu has taken over his company,
Mm-hmm.
but it's clearly not because he gave it to her.
No.
It's only basically in his absence
Yeah.
that she has risen to the top.
Mm-hmm.
and been able to take over, which I thought that's an interesting little detail.
Probably wasn't too hard.
Right.
Because, I mean, if he was declared missing, pretty much all she had to do was prove like a genetic link to that she's the next of kin. And it was probably pretty cut and dry. I was like, oh, well, obviously it all goes to you then.
is that how businesses work?
I mean, I would think that if there's no heir named, and I can't imagine that Adrian would have had like a last will and testament at that point.
Yeah, but
Like
I don't.
he was gone so long that I think he was declared dead, because if you're missing for so long, that's usually how that works.
Yeah.
So, like, when we met him a couple episodes back with the Dr. Manhattan episode, he's in Karnak. He's clearly, like, nobody else is there. It's in ruins.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Lady Trieu goes there, he's been there. Presumably, he just lives there now, and
Yeah.
with
Mhm.
little to no other interaction with the outside world,
Mm-hmm.
which makes me wonder, like, why was he still in charge of his company at all at that point? Then, like, had
I
it
mean,
just been
he was still manufacturing like the squid rain and stuff like that, so he was keeping active at least. I mean, and that's kind of outside of like putting in appearances at his like corporate offices. Like, that's typically where he usually is.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he spends the majority of his time in the comics there.
Yeah, it's either between Karnak and being at a place. The corporate headquarters in New York.
Yeah.
I don't know. So it's reasonable to believe he was still running the company then from
Oh, yeah.
Karnak. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if it would have been if she, like, in any legitimate way would have taken over his company, because I feel like news would have spread that she was his daughter, and
Oh, yeah, that's
everything
a good point.
surrounding her is very much shrouded in mystery.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Maybe it was a hostile takeover then.
yeah,
Maybe she bought up everybody's shares or something.
yeah. Could have very well been that.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like it also would have been pretty suspect for him to go missing, be declared dead, and then his daughter to show up to take over the company.
Yeah, that makes sense too, I guess. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Because, yeah, nobody knows that she's his daughter outside of them.
Yeah,
Nobody knew that she's his daughter before him, even. Like,
Yeah.
it was just her, basically.
yeah. In regards to his plan and everything he's did and he's doing, she says,
This is truly amazing, Mr. White. But it's a rerun.
Excuse me?
A rerun. You had a genius idea 20 years ago, but you're still doing the same thing. Just smaller. Great. You stopped the clock, but what happens if you let it start up again?
What happens is we're right back where we left off. Without a constant reminder of otherworldly threat, the world's superpowers would start pointing their arsenals at each other again.
What if I could make every nuclear weapon on the planet disappear?
Please. If that could be done, I'd have already done it.
But you're just a man, Mr. White. You have limitations.
she has a better plan.
Yeah.
Or,
She thinks she does.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that was real interesting too, because it was. I think it hits back again on Dr. Manhattan's last words to him in the comic about nothing ever ends.
So he's like, oh, I got to keep it going.
Yeah, because
I
he
can't just rest on my laurels here.
Mm-hmm. Because like clearly he's thought in the long term to some point, but how long can that really go on?
Yeah. It was very interesting that he's not, as we see with his genetic material being stored, it's interesting he never had anything in place for his legacy and for him to live on beyond his own life.
Yeah,
like he
no
never actually
successor.
started anything. Yeah.
Yeah. No lab of experiments gone wrong of half-formed Adrians with monster teeth or something like that nightmare
wait.
lab in Alien Resurrection.
Maybe we'll see it all in season 2.
All the
HBO.
failed Jeremy
Yeah.
Irons clones. Kill me.
That's an interesting concept. You have these monstrosities that are also super
And they
smart.
have to, release Vite from prison so that he can defeat them all.
Right. He's proved that he's the best Vite.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we know that he's worked with genetic engineering before because his pet Bubastis
yeah.
in the comics.
Yeah,
I
the
like
squid
we-
itself.
Yeah, the squid, of course. I like that we get a little Bubastis nod in this episode because Topher's stuffed animals got the weird antenna feeler things
didn't
at the
catch
end,
that.
which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
He accepted pretty easily that Lady Trieu was his daughter, and like maybe it was just the tantalizing aspect of having an adversary. You know, she claims to be the most.
I think that one, and she even refers to the sample number,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm sure he
Yeah.
probably realized. Like
Number
and-
2346.
and like knowing the details, that it was like stored behind the portrait of Alexander, like knowing that it existed at all. I mean that's pretty clear indicator that you kind of at least got some idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. He says that he's never been with a woman before.
Yeah, he's never given himself to one.
Yeah.
He must be pretty potent. First try, she got pregnant.
Yeah. It's kind of, I don't know if it's hinted at a lot in the comic, but Rorschach at least suspects Adrian of being gay,
Yeah.
which would make sense, if, he says this as well. So,
Yeah. Well, he makes a comment right after that he doesn't indulge in like such hedonistic pursuits or something along those lines.
it's a distraction.
Yeah, which makes me wonder like if he's just straight up asexual completely.
Yeah.
Because again, Rorschach too, like we also know that a lot of his assumptions are right leaning. So like it could literally
Yeah.
boil down to like one time he saw Ozymandias at a wine and cheese party and thought he was gay or something.
Yeah. The line in the comic is so interesting because he says possible homosexual must investigate further.
Yeah, which is like so dedicated to that. And then of course there's that
But then there's like also the implication that maybe Rorschach himself is a closeted homosexual.
yeah, because there's especially that weird moment later where like his hand lingers on Dan's when they're after they go to the bar and beat the out of the
Yeah.
thugs. So it's interesting. Which I mean, again, of course, ties into like how many of these people that like actively work against like the LGBT community that are like closeted themselves, like especially in positions of power. So yeah, it's real interesting. So I'm more convinced that Adrian's just a straight up asexual to
Yeah.
begin with.
Which is an also interesting concept because then like Dr. Manhattan is more of like a
Yeah.
sexual being than him.
Yeah.
Which you would expect the opposite.
Was there any reason to think that he's asexual over just what we've seen from him, which is very disciplined and calculated?
I mean, that mention in the show definitely leads me to think, and even in the comics, like you only the only characters you see in the context of romantic relationships are Dan, Dr. Manhattan, and Laurie, and then well, of course, the original Silk Spectre for the most part. As far as like the main characters go, like Rorschach, all we know is that he was abused as a child. We don't really have any kind of framework for him as far as like romantic involvements with
Yeah,
anyone.
and he was scarred very early on, and he's got some very
Deep-seated
messed up
issues
views
as a
with
result
that.
of it. And then Ozymandias, like I don't even think you never even see him like going anywhere like with a woman on his arm, like nothing, like and you would think that would be at least for the sake of keeping up appearances, but it's just
Bruce
it's always
Wayne
Adrian.
style,
Yeah,
but
exactly. But it's just always Adrian, always by himself.
Yeah. And then Trieu tells him that in exactly 5 years, 72 days, 9 hours, and 17 seconds, she has a probe that will be taking a picture of Dr. Manhattan on Europa. Which then we get to see that intercut with him scheming and planning that out so that he
Mm-hmm.
knows exactly when that probe's going to be flying by. She also gives him a line that I think is very interesting because I think it implants this idea in her head for the Manhattan booths. He says, "You think that I have some kind of a hotline to him on Mars?"
Mm-hmm.
Which that might have been how she made her billions.
Yeah, it very well
it's
could have
very
been.
possible. Yeah.
Interesting little tidbit that she gave him such a specific time. Like, this is exactly when it's going to happen, rather than saying, in the future, I will have a... But, like, and then he took that and knew...
He looked at the clock and he's like, "All right, I can
I
I
can
can
work with
time that
this."
out from right now.
yeah.
I'm going to remember." He's like Data in Star Trek.
Even given being on a different planet with different solar system, like, or not solar system, but like different times of day and whatnot.
Yeah, relativity.
He was able to track that exactly. I'll give it to you. He's
Somehow
the
that happened.
smartest man in the
Hey,
world.
he was
I
the
guess.
world's smartest man.
Europa's smartest man.
So yeah. Then we see Europa, and Vite is in his cell while in his Ozymandias costume, and he makes a wish cake out of mud and looks outside to see a shuttle arriving outside. And he grabs the horseshoe and climbs out of the tunnel that he created and is confronted by the game warden. The game warden shoots him, but he catches the bullet, and the warden refuses to let him go, and Ozymandias kills him with the horseshoe. And then the rest of the Phillips and Crookshanks line up and bid him farewell as he enters the ship. He steps into a preservation chamber where he is instantly encased in gold.
Goldfinger.
So many things happening.
Yeah.
I love that they brought back catching the bullet. 'Cause as soon as the game warden shot him and like he threw his hand up, like I was like, oh, he caught the bullet. That son of a bitch. Like, oh yeah, that was so
Still got those
perfect.
reflexes.
God, yeah, that whole exchange between them, and then like right after he stabs the game warden with the shiv horseshoe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sharpened after all that digging.
All the digging. Yeah, there's that.
Who knew that horseshoes were so well used for digging?
That's a lot of digging.
Yeah, there's that great exchange.
Master, may I ask you something?
Of course.
The mask. Why did you make me wear a mask?
Because masks make men cruel.
That's what you wanted. For me to be cruel.
I had 8 years to kill. Having a worthy adversary helped to keep me sane.
Was I, Master? Was I a worthy adversary?
No. But you put on a hell of a show.
So he says he wanted a worthy adversary, and then he has to. He just goes, no. It's
No
like,
bedside manner.
what a bummer of a thing to find out right before you die. I was like, you weren't good enough. But he says it kept things interesting, something to that effect.
The
Yeah.
next line, yeah.
You put on a hell of a show.
That's what it was. Put on a hell of a show.
Yeah, so going back to the first episode when he tells Phillips and Crookshanks,
I've started writing a play. It's a tragedy in 5 acts. When it's finished, I want the two of you to play the leading roles.
the play that he wrote was not really that play that we see them put on in episode 2. The play that he wrote was this multi-year and just endeavor and way for him to take up his time while he's on Europa.
Mm-hmm.
So we got kind of an answer a while ago that time doesn't really work for Adrian the way it does for other people. And then there were so many of these anniversary cakes.
Mm-hmm.
Are we under the assumption that those anniversary cakes were actually for our years, though?
I would think so.
That's the way I took it now.
Yeah, I think
I was
so.
confused at first because it was like every time he showed up, he got one of these cakes. But it was really representing a full year of his time there.
Yeah, well, and then the other thing too is like this is all in the past. Cause like we even when he returns, like we get that title card is like now, and then something else I didn't even think about because we talked about like where did the 3 years and change go between him escaping and him getting here, and I was like, how long does it take to travel to Jupiter, especially like if he had to essentially be put in suspension because it very well may have taken him that long to get back.
Yeah, her probe took, who
Like
knows
5
when she
years.
launched it, but at least
Yeah.
5 years from that time that she said.
Yeah, so I was curious. Like, part of me was almost wondering if we were gonna find out that something had happened in that gap that we talked about. But I was like, oh no, he was just sleeping and
was in
traveling because that's
carbonite,
how
yeah.
long it takes.
Yeah. So then the gold statue was that's who was in the garden. Like when
Hiding
Laurie
in plain
asks,
sight all
why'd
along.
you make him so old? Lady True's answer is, because he is old. Because it was him. It
Yeah.
was him standing there. That which gives you the chills.
Yeah.
That's a...
Just left him there for a minute, and then it's like, all right, yeah, now we'll
Now I
now we'll
need
thaw
you,
him
yeah.
out.
But, I mean, in as much as Adrian was looking for an adversary, I'm sure Trieu was aware that the only person that could probably prevent it was Adrian.
Yeah.
And so
Let's keep him
don't-
out of the picture
Yeah.
until
that's a brilliant way for her to ensure her victory.
almost.
Yeah.
She should have
hubris.
She should have done it just like Ozymandias himself did it, and like thought him 30 minutes afterwards.
Yep, brought him back after.
Because
I'm blue now.
Yep. Oh, if only he'd called her like a Republic serial villain. But yeah, some other cool imagery is when he's crawling out of the tunnel, he's got the horseshoe in his mouth, and as he's like climbing out, the horseshoe looks like tusks on a walrus, which the title of the episode and the song that plays is "I Am the Walrus," so it's in reference to that, which is very cool.
I was gonna wait to get there,
okay.
but holy cow, that song is just perfect for everything that's happened in the show. The egg correlations, the walrus, but like the scoring of this has been masterfully done.
Oh yeah.
Like leagues above other things that I've watched. I cannot believe over and over and over the song selection is perfect.
Yeah, the song selection and the score itself is it's so incredible.
It's interesting. I feel like that was the case with Lost too. Like at least the use of pop songs, I feel like was effectively done, which makes me wonder if like that was all Lindelof.
Yeah,
because it's
very well could have been.
done so well here. And I really like after watching this, I really want to check out The Leftovers now.
No,
'cause
me too.
I'm very curious to check out his other work, and I've heard nothing but great things about that show.
Yeah. But another, I want to call out like an awesome song from episode 6, which I didn't recognize at the time, is the song where Hooded Justice is, almost hung, and then which they tie up at the end. I misquoted, and that's not a pre-existing song. That is an original song that Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor wrote.
Holding you in my embrace, everything is in its place, the way it always was, the way it used to be.
And it is so pitch perfect for that time. It sounds like it came from that time. You just assumed it was something that
an
was
old-timey song.
I discovered it like in their playlist a few weeks ago, and I was like, "What? This was all original? That's insane!" That they adapt, and there are just so many. They're not kept in a box.
Yeah. Would have thought the guy that Closer would give us a good old-timey 1930s jingle.
Yeah. But so then we're back in the now, and while Vite is being taken out of his golden shell, Trieu approaches Beyond to reveal that she is her mother, but Beyond already knows. Mm-hmm. And she talks to Vite as he is woken up, and Vite tells her that Manhattan is on Earth, but Trieu has already known about that. She says that she is about to absorb his power and then destroy him, and that Vite was brought back so that he could see her achieve everything, starting from nothing. This is where, I mean, Trieu was always impatient and condescending with everybody to a degree, but she just like lets it all out in this episode.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and that should have been a telegraph of how wrong things are going to go, too, because she just straight up is Bond villaining here at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and I'm going to make you watch it.
Yeah.
The one person who might be able to stop me.
Which is my understanding of basically how Adrian was towards the end of the comic. Like, because he kept up kind of this public appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And then towards the end, he was like, well, this is what has to happen. I've come to the conclusion that this is what needs to go.
But the difference is that Adrian was smart enough to do it before he was found out, and before he revealed his plan.
Yeah.
Which she
Whereas
would...
clearly she did not get
But
that
as much,
part of his genes.
Well, right. But as much as she knew of his plan, she wouldn't have known that, like, everything that he did to stop Rorschach and Dan and all them. She wouldn't have known that he had timed it so that it happened 30 minutes prior to the actual fight.
Sure. But you would think that...
But if she's smart enough...
touting, if you're going to go around and call yourself the smartest woman in the world, maybe don't make the same mistake that, in Adrian's own words, Republic serial villains do. It's like, I mean, how many Bond movies do you got to watch? How many comic book movies do you got to watch? Like,
she doesn't strike me as the kind of person that watched a lot of comics.
No, but I mean, again, you would think that just touting yourself like about this master plan is like maybe, and again, like she has so little sense of hubris. That again, like she literally brings back the one person who might be able to stop her father, and then that's exactly what he does.
Yeah, she brings back. I mean, she's taken control of like the two most powerful, most all-knowing beings alive, with Dr. Manhattan and Vite, and she thinks that she can manipulate them both, which she finds out she cannot.
Yeah, well, and that even revealing her plan to Angela.
Mm-hmm.
Like, knowing full well who Dr. Manhattan really is, and knowing that Angela's probably going to go and, like, call him out of the weird amnesia state that he's in, like, which sets things in motion. But again, like, revealing your plan at all.
Yeah, she should have just
should have just
taken
done
her
it
out right then.
Yeah, because that's also the reason that Angela knows that the 7th Cavalry is there in the first place. Mm-hmm. Is because she brings John out of that state.
Yeah, which I wonder if the cavalry had to wait for him to get out of this state in order for them to take him, because...
No, the tachyons might not have affected him.
Yeah.
But they still would have, because, like, all it did was make him forget that he was Dr. Manhattan. Because, like, we see during the White Knight, like, when he zaps the one cavalry member to Karnak, that like he has those reactions, so he's still there.
Yeah.
So if they shot him with a tachyon cannon, he might not understand what was happening to him, but it would happen still because he's still Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah. It is just interesting that they waited until he was like in full Manhattan mode.
Yeah.
To do it.
When it would have been so much easier to like bust in there. And like, yeah, he might have gotten a couple of them with his reflexes, but like he would have been largely in the dark as far as like being able to defend himself.
So for a show that the plot basically boils down to everybody wants the power of Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah,
they did this incredibly well.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
It never felt like...
Keep it in buried until the next to last episode was great.
Yeah. But also like how the cavalry went about doing it, and like the lithium batteries or
Are used to house him.
yeah, like what it really starts as a very simple premise of, oh, everybody wants to take his power. They got there the most roundabout way they possibly could in the
Oh yeah,
deepest.
I could like because I remember we were talking earlier about like what the batteries were for, and I think the general consensus was they were probably trying to build some kind of bomb or doomsday device with them, not a cage for
Well, I mean,
a
they
god.
were, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I mean is definitely on the like I thought it was being used to build something destructive as opposed to something containing.
Yeah, which is, I guess we can go into the next. Well,
Yeah.
no, actually, that's going to be here in a little bit later, but we'll get to that when we get to it. But yeah, it is interesting. But a few more notes on this scene before we move on. I like that she says, "You should change before we go." I thought these were more appropriate for a man your age. Stop embarrassing yourself, Dad.
Which oh man, it would have been great to just see him just keep wearing that costume the rest of the
Yeah.
episode.
But I really liked the outfit that like he actually wore. I
Oh,
thought
yeah,
he
it was
looked really
great.
good in it, and it had the Trieu logo, the T Trieu logo, and it also had his eye, like the symbol, like that he
The Eye of
wears.
Horus
Mhm.
that he wears, yeah.
And I like that. If you look at the Trieu logo, we've not talked about that, but it looks like an elephant. Like it looks like an elephant with tusks. That's what the T looks like.
Yeah. I didn't put that together, but yeah, the hearing you say it, that's exactly what it looks like.
And the clock itself, there's a shot where they're looking up at it, and it looks like a horseshoe, which is like more horseshoe imagery.
So I get a question at this point in the story about Lady Trieu's mom, Beyond's motivations. She took the vial. She, became pregnant with his child, to which earlier in the show, Trieu says that her mom made her promise never to leave
Vietnam.
Vietnam, yeah. But she does, like, the scene that we get at the very beginning of the episode is, screw you. But her plan was to have this daughter and keep her in Vietnam forever. And, I mean, potentially, like, we don't get a lot of context for that. Was her hope to be like, yeah, if anybody finds out this is Adrian Veidt's daughter, there will be problems? Or was her plan to raise Vietnam up by having their own super genius?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very well could be. I think there's a lot of mystery
Yeah.
still surrounding Trieu's upbringing, I think. Yeah.
I just don't think her mom's plan was like, yes, I'm going to take...
I mean, to me, I just assumed that, like, if there was a plan at all, it could literally have been for the sake of maybe, like, trying to extort Adrian down the line or something.
Mm-hmm.
By, like, revealing the heir that he never knew he had, or
And so
or maybe
her-
even using that as a connection to request, like, I don't know, money down the road or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I don't remember now. Does Lady Trieu ever say how her mom died?
No, she never says it. It might be in a Peteypedia. I know they touch upon Trieu's mom in Peteypedia at some point, but I can't tell you exactly what surrounded her death. Beyond talks about her have memories of being very old, which we see. She's not that old, in Karnak in 1985, and she
Yeah.
would have been even younger than that during the Vietnam War, in which she would have experienced the comedian like coming in and torching her village. But of course, with all these like memories like being shot into her all the time, of course she could be experiencing a multitude of memories at
Oh, yeah.
once in different ages and times, Dr. Manhattan style.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean it's chronological.
Yeah. And my guess is that Trieu's mom probably passed shortly before she goes to Adrian.
Mm-hmm.
Because that seems like it'd be kind of the perfect catalyst to set those events in motion.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing too, is like it seems like the kind of thing that Beyond might not have told her up until like her last days as well.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, if you know your whole life that this Ozymandias is your dad, why do you wait like 20-some years before you finally go to confront him about it?
Mm-hmm.
It just seems interesting to me that she clearly had a plan. She took so much time to learn the passwords, to figure out what's behind the picture, to do all this stuff, to impregnate herself
With that special gun.
with the special
Yeah.
right, a special
The
gun.
goo gun.
Where did that come from? To then never seemingly execute on it, unless her plan was, yes, I'm going to have a super smart daughter who's going to eventually become Dr. Manhattan.
And I'm going to tell her to clone me.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
And I want to be there for
It could also have been as simple as she just wanted a child,
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted something for herself out of her time at Karnak. Because we also know that, like, she left like immediately after that, which is why she wasn't killed with the rest of the refugees.
Yeah, she knew it was coming. Which I always thought there were just the 3, because you only see the 3 ever in the comic. But then when they showed like the whole army of refugees he has
Yeah.
working there, I'm like, oh, look at all of them.
Which, I mean, makes sense because it probably takes more than 3 people to
Run
keep
that
that
whole
place
place,
running.
yeah.
So yeah, it could genuinely have been as simple as she wanted a child and figured why not take it from the best stock that you could get, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and then
And
kind
then
of
curse
consider
his
that
name.
her consider that her severance
Is that
package.
common practice at a sperm bank?
To curse the
Screw
donor.
you! I don't know. I'm curious what the motivations were. If there's more to it that just didn't make it into the show.
Yeah, I mean, part of me, honestly, like that's one of those questions that, like, I'm also okay not having an answer for, too.
It's fair.
Because big picture wise is like, seems pretty small potatoes considering.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, like there could be a multitude of reasons. It could be one. It could be all of them. Could be none of them.
This is true.
Yeah. Speaking of Trieu, her and her gang show up at Greenwood Avenue, and they see Seymour, the newsstand man. Trieu gets her papers and tells Beyond to put them in the time capsule. And Adrian gets to have a moment with Seymour in which he finds out that Robert Redford is still president. And he asks what people think about Ozymandias, and Seymour says that nobody cares. He's old news. And the Millennium Clock arrives to hover over the square, and Adrian tells Seymour the end is nigh.
And then he pulls out Rorschach's picket sign. Part of me wonders if hearing that nobody cared about him is what motivated. I mean, we obviously, like, he wanted to come back and continue what he was doing anyway. But, like, I'm wondering if, like, just straight up here, and I was like, oh yeah, people have forgotten Ozymandias. Like, nobody cares anymore.
Mhm.
Like, is kind of what prompted him to turn on his daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, as like, and he even says later, there's a number of other factors, but, like, clearly he's affected when he's told that nobody cares about him.
Yeah, and from the beginning, when he's brought back, we don't really get to know what Trieu's true intentions are, because she claims that it's for the betterment of mankind, and it's a very similar plan that what he has, where it's, very good intentions on the surface, and we don't know what he knows about her. We don't know what he thinks of the plan, but when he sees the Millennium Clock, he's like, oh, you built it. And he tells her it's beautiful. There seems to be a real sense of awe in him.
Yeah.
And you don't really know whether or not he's clearly impressed to a degree, but we don't know if he's like, oh, this is awesome, or if he's like terrified, or if it takes him time to process and be like, yeah, this is not a good idea.
I think he's definitely impressed to a point. Her plan seems so much more centered on her, whereas his plan succeeding was entirely contingent on nobody knowing.
Yeah, and hers is all about, I'm going to get on this platform so that everybody can see me and bow down and worship.
Yeah, it's there definitely seems to be more of a martyr complex with her than with him, because like he executes his plan and he just suffers in silence for years because he can't tell anyone what he did, whereas her entire plan is like, look at me, I'm your savior, I'm the one who did this. Which is funny because there's Adrian even has a line later on, like, when you see someone trying to attain the power of a god for themselves, assume the worst.
Yeah, it's oh yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But like that makes sense to me for her character because she is Vietnamese, because she would have grown up there and like existed there. She would have, and as a woman, she would have had to proven herself over and over and over. Whereas,
Oh, for sure.
Whereas Adrian is a white male.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't mean to break it down into such basic terms, but like their experiences would have been vastly different.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and she essentially is seeking her own reparations for the wrongs of like American imperialism that was done to her and her countrymen and women, which completely makes sense. Like her motivations, like nothing about that is mysterious to me. Like everything about it seems pretty cut and dry. But again, just like that it's contingent on kind of putting herself up on a pedestal, that it hinges on giving this absolute power to one person. It's dangerous because I mean her plan is just a more well thought out plan of what the 7th Cavalry is trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like they both have the same idea. It was like, hey, what if I was a god? And again, like, because it's kind of the two sides of the Thanos coin in Avengers, like, because his big plan is to like cut half the population, whereas like, why don't you just double the resources instead? Like one's plan calls for genocide, which is the 7th Cavalry, in their idea to restore balance, or what they think is balance, because in their own words, it's so hard being a white man. And hers is to, like, she literally says it at one point during the episode, like, to increase the amount of resources and all that so people don't go hungry, things like that. But it's just like, but how long is that to plan for before you realize how much more you can do with this power?
Yeah, and how long do you maintain your identity? Like that was my thought with both of their plan, or with the same plan with these two different people. I'm like, how do they expect to be the same person? We know that Dr. Manhattan is a different person than John Osterman. He could not maintain his humanity. How did they?
Which would have been well documented in this universe, right? Like, I mean,
oh yeah. Why? Like, how do they expect to?
The same results.
Yeah, to know that they're going to still have the same ambitions or thoughts.
Oh yeah.
They have no idea what this experience and what this transformation will do to them.
Yeah, if it works, which is what I said an episode or two ago, is like, how do they even know what's going to happen? Like, because nobody knew that was going to happen to Osterman when he was in the accident. Like, nobody was like, oh yeah, if we smash his atoms around, he'll be able to reassemble himself and basically turn into a god.
Right, which begs the question, like, his experience from going from John to Dr. Manhattan was through and through a fluke.
Yeah.
Right? Is there anything referenced in the comics about other people trying to go through the field?
They talk about how it could not be repeated. It's stated, and I think it could be implied that Russia would probably try to do that themselves. But we'd never get confirmation of like failed experiments of new Dr. Manhattans, but I think it's very likely that there were several casualties.
Like the closest we get is when Adrian tries to kill him in the comic, also at the expense of killing his pet Bubastis.
Which maybe Bubastis can come back.
So like, because I mean, so that's the only time we really see it attempted on anyone. But at the same time, also, like, Bubastis is an animal. Like, probably doesn't have the intellectual capacity to process, certainly not rearrange its atoms and rebuild itself. Whereas, like, right after that, John says, the first thing I learned to do was to rebuild myself.
Oh. If it had been a person and Bubastis, do you think that that person would have come back like Jeff Goldblum, the Fly style?
Brundlebastis.
Yeah.
So, like, other people have tried the same origin, and that didn't work. I just wonder, like, how absolutely astronomically impossible is it to go through that to become a Dr. Manhattan type versus this convoluted mess that's like, well, I have to catch a god real quick and then extract his essence or whatever. I just...
Yeah, because even he says, is like, because he says that he can't transfer his powers, or he wouldn't transfer his powers without somebody's consent.
Yeah.
Right.
Which also, like, begs the question, is like, can anyone replicate this without Dr. Manhattan himself facilitating that transfer?
So it's a mantle that you pick up.
I mean, essentially, because he says theoretically that he could pass his genetic components on.
Right. Right.
Whereas
which
opposed
then-
to, like, if they're being extricated from him, like, who knows what that looks like?
But then you're begging the question, was the mantle passed on to John to become Dr. Manhattan?
Not necessarily. No, I think it originated with him. I don't think it was passed on to him before. But because I'm saying, like, because it didn't exist before him, it doesn't exist in addition to him, like, he's the only one that has any understanding of how he works. Because, like, even Keen and Trieu, like, at best they have, like, a tenuous grasp on how his powers work. They don't understand, like, how he experiences things. Like, only a handful of people. Like, Lori understands it. Adrian understands it. Angela understands it. But, like, outside of them, like, most people, like, they don't know how he perceives things. They don't know how, like, he feels, how he's affected by things. And they certainly don't understand. They know that he has the powers of a god. But I don't think, they understand the science of it to some extent. But, like, how can you really have a full understanding when the only person that has that knowledge is Dr. Manhattan, who I'm sure is not given that knowledge to anyone willingly.
Unreachable. Like, this is all theoretical.
Yeah. And even he, like, even with passing on his powers, he says theoretically, because he doesn't know for sure. And he's literally the authority on himself. Which, I mean, so, yeah, this entire episode, like, even if they hadn't stopped Lady Trieu, like, I'm really curious what would have happened, because we'll get to that as well, but yeah, there's just so many variables in this thing. It's like at the end of the day, this is just a bad plan. Like, this is
For anybody.
this is just not a good idea. Smartest woman in the world or no, like, even Adrian's plan, like, he knew that Dr. Manhattan was the only one who could stop him, but his plan wasn't contingent on him.
No. Yeah. It is very interesting that Dr. Manhattan becomes, like, the MacGuffin of this whole season.
Yeah.
Not
like-
where I thought the show was going.
Yeah, because, like, all Adrian had to do was cloud John from being able to see what was happening, which was easy enough with, like, the tachyon radiation being generated around it and everything.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and he even says, like, Plan B with blowing him up with the intrinsic field generator and everything. Like, obviously he was hoping it wouldn't come to any of those. And it really didn't, because, again, he'd already carried out his plan by that point. But yeah, to just hinge it on, I was like, I think I can take this dude's powers, and then not really having much beyond that is just a big gamble.
We see that gamble take place when the Cyclops brain trusts enter the 7th Cavalry secret base and the abandoned department store. And 7th K gets news that Abar is out of the house and is attacking their men. And we see Looking Glass take a spot beside Lori, and he tells her that when the time is right, he'll get them out of there. When suddenly Dr. Manhattan is teleported into a cage in front of them.
I thought this was an interesting, kind of a full circle of Looking Glass's character, because throughout the whole season, we've very much tied him to. He seems to be kind of the Rorschach of the show, of this telling, and now he's literally standing there in a Rorschach mask. I don't remember now. Is Manhattan already in the cage at this point?
No,
He appears in the cage as it's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he shows up, and there's a big reaction out of Lori where she just can't believe what she's seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because as far as she knows, he's been on Mars all this time.
Yeah. Then we see Senator Keene Sr. show up.
Yep.
Guy who passed the Keene Act that outlawed the vigilantes in the 70s.
Who is an established character from the comics, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but only he's referenced only. He's never seen.
Yeah, he never appears.
So,
I love that Lori and Looking Glass still have their trademark banter. Mirror guy?
yeah.
It's Looking Glass.
And then we cut to Angela trying to get information out of one of the.
Oh yeah, just going straight Batman on one of the cavalry members' fingers.
Yeah, she's breaking his fingers just like Rorschach does in the bar, trying to get information out.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting reversal where somebody wearing his mask is getting his fingers broken.
This time, the fingers break you.
And then Joe Keene gets to monologue in front of the Cyclops Brain Trust and details everything that led up to this point. When Angela arrives and warns them that their plan is not going to work. And he disregards her warning, steps into the pod, and starts it up anyway.
I love that he monologues as he's stripping.
Yeah.
Which all I could think of was the scene in American Psycho where Patrick Bateman is talking about Phil Collins and he's just taking his clothes off with the escort and the call girl. And then, of course, he is wearing the ridiculous, weird black thong underwear that Dr. Manhattan wears in the comics.
Oh, as soon as he took his shirt off, you could see them poking out the top. And I told Sarah, I was like, oh, get ready for some epic underwear. We're going to see the Dr. Manhattan. Which he's not wearing the thong, but...
Yeah. Well, then, of course, Lori
difference.
tells him that he looks ridiculous in his panties.
Yeah. Which it really like caused me to like go back and like look at it and look. I'm like, yeah, it was a thong. And I'm like, what is the significance of that? And then I never realized until now that his underwear is an M.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why they're shaped like that.
I like Keene Jr.'s response. As I'm about to become a god, waving my dick in everyone's face seems a bit excessive.
Yeah.
It's a good
Just
line.
overkill.
Yeah, that's where it was overkill.
That they really thought that was going to work. Like he had gone.
Oh, yeah.
He had put a lot of time and energy into this. He was
Like I said, this is a dumb plan.
he had to go get those panties made. Like that's to the extent that he was like, oh,
He had to
if I'm
find
going to do
them.
it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to.
And a specialty like shop
probably-
in Saigon for Viviende is what they think it was for.
Probably some cosplay sites. Some Etsy shop that custom makes.
The whole time, and he's monologuing about how this and that, and like, I am a little bummed we didn't get a Robert Redford cameo.
Oh yeah.
I was holding out hope even to the end, but
He won't return Vite's phone calls apparently.
Yeah.
yeah. But like all in all, as villain speeches go, it was a good one. It was pretty.
Oh yeah, I definitely feel like it's like this in the exchange with Looking Glass in the episode where he shows him Adrian's tape to the president. Like those are definitely Keene's kind of shining scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But again, they just Bond villains it.
Yeah, there's so much exposition in this episode. For the past few episodes, there's been like episode 7 was a lot of exposition, as is this one, but I was never bored by it.
Yeah.
It all felt like it was like leading up to stuff, and it felt organic, and it kept the momentum going. And it was just like with this show and how perfect that it's been crafted up until this point, it's just been the pieces like perfectly fitting into place. It's never felt contrived or shoehorned in. It's just incredible that you can insert, I think, that much exposition in it.
Yeah.
Not feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, and you also get in this, you've understood in the last like 2 episodes that Lady Trieu is not really who she's said she. Her motivations go different. She does want to stop Cyclops and all that, but her motivations are clearly very different. But you get to see like the culmination of everything they've built and made and done, and you realize, wow, this is just really not that well done. Like, you're in a warehouse, like this is poorly thought out.
You,
And
you
all
built
these
the
other
cage out of like old lithium batteries
Right,
that you guys
watch
had to
batteries.
like stockpile.
yeah.
Well, then on top of that,
and tech
he's-
that you stole.
He's literally the one that put Lori there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
how cocky you gotta be? It was like, oh, you know what? Just to wave it in their face, I'm gonna send one of the best people the FBI has.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, and granted, like, not that she necessarily does anything
Yeah.
to stop him, but like, I mean, there are probably things set in motion that wouldn't have been otherwise had she not been dispatched.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But like, they talk about him becoming president as being a half-baked plan. It's like, this is, well, I guess it's more thought out.
Yeah.
But still. And nobody in the audience there, nobody else from the cavalry is like, well, maybe I want to be Dr.
Yeah.
Manhattan. Why do you get to
Well,
be
I was
Dr.
very
Manhattan?
interested why they decided like, yeah, this is the guy.
Yeah.
This is the guy we want to have ultimate power. Why
Right.
would you ever want anybody to have that? Is beyond me.
Yeah, I'm guessing presumably because he was probably the ranking leadership for Cyclops.
But that's exactly why they wouldn't, though. Like, they're a bunch of politicians.
Sure.
They don't give power to people they can't control.
But maybe some of them were like me and were smart enough to go, yeah, we got no clue what's going to happen when he steps in this booth. Yeah, no.
Let him do it.
Go for it.
You're the
Yeah.
young one. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
go
want to
ahead.
see this show.
Be the first chimpanzee we launch into space. Go for it.
That's actually probably a really good point.
Oh, yeah. No, if you were like, hey, we don't completely understand this, you can step into this thing and you'll either become a god or soup. I'm just going to stay me. I'm just going to keep on keeping on.
Right.
It's like, be a god. That sounds exhausting. Be soup. That's even worse.
Yeah. That's why Judd didn't want to do it himself.
Yeah. You can give me 90-10 on that and I'll still just nope. I'm not stepping in that damn thing.
To which then Angela shows up and she's like, guys, this is a terrible idea. And she's like, Lady Trieu wants you to
She
do
let
this.
you do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the response is, well, no, we stole these. And like didn't even give a half thought to yeah,
Let's
wow,
think
actually,
back.
maybe,
How
yeah.
did we get a hold of those?
Right.
Yeah.
Which,
I
yeah,
thought that was
True's
hilarious.
plan is very similar to.
We stole them from one of the richest, probably most well-guarded places you could find. Just a bunch of rednecks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's insane.
We found exactly what we needed to build a cage.
Yeah.
I would expect there to be like forklifts with like a big old sticky note on it that says, don't steal this.
Don't take these if you want to catch Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, for Dr. Manhattan use only.
Use this if you want to become a god, but I don't think you should.
Love Lady Trieu.
Yeah, a lot of boneheadedness just across the board between the cavalry and Lady Trieu.
Probably a lot of just tunnel vision, honestly. Like
Yeah.
in the quest to find power, they found why would I stop it? Presidency when I could become a god, and
Oh.
that was kind of the end of that line of thinking. Yeah, okay, I'll just
No
do that
one-
then.
No one ever credited white supremacists with an abundance of brains.
This is true. We didn't get really. They were messing around with that intrinsic field from a couple episodes back, from the Looking Glass episode.
Yeah.
I think they
well,
were-
the
they were-
teleporter,
yeah.
which is what they used to teleport him.
Yeah, they were testing it.
It just looked very different in that form than it did
The gun that they ended
yeah,
up
the
making.
tachyon gun.
Yeah.
I think they were just still experimenting with. All right, we throw this thing here and it ends up there, and let's try
Yeah.
to.
Well, I think
Find a way
I
to-
think they were using them in tandem
Yeah.
because I think the field generator was essentially the other end of it, which is what put him
Gotcha.
in the cage in the first place.
Mhm.
Interesting.
So yeah, then they start it up, and everyone's transported in Greenwood Avenue.
Which I wanted to know more. I was hoping PDpedia had more about that, because why there?
So there was the site of the Greenwood Massacre.
Yeah.
And Lady Trieu, she has a line later that part of her agreement with Will was taking out the Cyclops leadership.
Yeah.
And she wanted to be dramatic and do it on the
Poetically
side of
put it
kind of
there,
what
yeah.
set it in motion all those years
Okay.
ago.
So it was more a flourish than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
walked away
and
from that-
the Millennium Clock was there as well.
Gotcha. I walked away from that scene wondering, like, why would she have taken them there? But that makes more sense.
Yeah, because
She's-
it's literally right down the street from the theater that we see in the very first shot of the series.
Yeah. So then Trieu begins the process of taking Manhattan's power for herself and destroying him. And then,
After we find out that Joe Keaton Jr. is now soup.
He's soup.
yeah.
A lot of soup. He turned into a whole lot of soup.
Oh yeah.
Which
It's
is-
always surprising how much blood's in the human body until you see it all laid out like that.
Ew. Literally.
And
Just
just
like the elevator in The Shining.
Yeah. He goes into the cage, and Dr. Manhattan's there, and he can touch it and still have an effect on the outside. So he gets to teleport Adrian, Laurie, and Wade to Karnak. Yeah, and then Trieu gets to give her little speech that Will wrote to the Cyclops leadership, but she's interrupted by Jane because Jane says, "Just do it. We don't want to hear it."
Man, Jane had no patience for, like, waiting out the game. She's like, when Laurie goes to confront her, basically, she's like, "Oh, I wasn't supposed to confess yet." Like, she wasn't going to sit around and waste her time.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, good on her at least.
Yeah.
I mean,
As an audience member, I appreciate
not as good as not revealing your plan until you've already done it, but I mean, at least she doesn't feel the need to put on airs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then one of my favorite things that happened when the transportation happened, and Laurie's like flipped onto her back, and then all of a sudden Adrian appears, and that moment between them.
Adrian?
Miss you, Spetchy. What a pleasant surprise.
Ah, My dad.
No. But the night is young.
I just love seeing like the two of them back together, and then the scenes with them and Looking Glass like at Karnak was I was just so happy
those
seeing
were a lot
all
of-
three of those characters interact.
Those were
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
I just love that Veidt is like in the game, and he's part of this episode, and he's not off on your rope the whole time.
Yeah, he's not a spectator. He's not. Yeah, and he's not in prison anymore. Those characters, Jeremy Irons did just a phenomenal job playing
he's
Adrian.
amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah, even the young Adrian doing the video and stuff was great. And what's the actress's name who plays Laurie?
Jean Smart.
Yeah.
Man, almost every scene that she is in, she just pops.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so those characters as legacy characters also just felt great on screen every
Yeah.
time they were there.
Which is crazy because the Laurie character in the book, every scene that she's in, she does not always pop. It's usually everybody around her.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think she's a better character in the show
Oh,
than she
way
is in
more.
the comics.
Mhm.
I think they definitely give her more to do. She feels like outside of convincing John to come back to Earth, she feels it just feels like they don't give her much to do in the comic.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, the latter half of this series, she didn't have a lot to do. She was just putting pieces together.
Oh no, but I mean she was still serving a role.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I mean, Malin Ackerman, God bless her, she tried. But she, like, even in the movie, like, she's not particularly well done or, like, just, yeah, like, you just don't really care at all
Yeah.
a lot, which is unfortunate. And again, I think that's more just that her character is not written with much to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was very beneficial. This show, it was a good mix of like men and women in the writer's room and directing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and like from the first episode she's in, like she's a catalyst, like she's a driving force in the series, which she wasn't outside of the Mars chapter in the comic. So it's nice to actually see her get stuff to do, and also it's just so much fun watching her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's just very well done. Like, Jean Smart does a great job with that role. And she's clearly having a good time playing that character, too.
Yeah.
Which is great.
And also, like, her joke in episode 3, the girl, like, throwing up the brick and the brick coming down, like, it kind of, like, comes to fruition
Yeah.
throughout the season.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a sense.
The squid-shaped brick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that they set up that pays off way down the line, which is again, just a testament to how well done this show is, like, and how much research and preparation and thought went into everything.
We see Adrian come up with a plan to rain frozen cephalopods on Tulsa to stop her. And then Manhattan says goodbye to Angela before he's destroyed.
Yeah, and everybody gets, like, everybody had a role to play in these last couple scenes of like, there's a reason that that mirror guy, what's his name?
Wade.
Wade. Yeah. That Adrian needs to know when the last rain was, and so
of course, as soon as he asked, I'm like, oh, he knows.
Yeah, Wade knows.
got that. He already knows that.
3 weeks.
Yeah, Laurie already knows what's coming. Like, just everybody had their role. Everybody was there for a reason. It just, the story comes together really beautifully here in this last act.
What's she going to do with this power once she's got it?
She claims she's gonna fix the world.
How do you know she won't?
Because she is clearly a raging narcissist whose ambition knows no limits. It's hubris, literal hubris. Anyone who seeks to attain the power of a god must be prevented at all costs from attaining it. But believe me, that girl will not rest until she has us all prostrate before her, kissing her tiny blue feet.
Raging narcissist, huh?
Opus esse uno, unum conoscenti. Takes one to know one.
As soon as he said that, I was like, I bet I know what that means.
Yeah.
So, comics-wise, does Adrian ever try to take Manhattan's power?
No. So, yeah, he knows better than to try to destroy Manhattan, and he just knows that he's the only person on Earth who could stop him from attaining and pulling any plans that he has in place.
Yeah, right. He's right. He's Manhattan in a lot of ways is the only person Adrian respects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Except for Trieu, apparently. Like, we had that scene earlier where I think Adrian really did come to respect Trieu because he's like, it's beautiful. I was almost expecting a line from him earlier on where she says, that she went and made her fortune herself, and him to say, you're welcome. Like, this is what inspired me, and this is what has inspired you. It worked. But we didn't get that. But, like, he's just giddy this whole second half of the episode.
Yeah, he gets to save the day. Is what he's saying.
The actual progress bar on Trieu's readout of, like, a Dr. Manhattan
powering down.
Yeah. I don't know. We get that a lot, and, like, it's just an easy descriptor, I guess, visually.
Yeah. It's
but
the only way to,
you're
like,
gonna
really show.
Yeah, unless you're going to have actually, like, Dr. Manhattan, like, not becoming blue anymore. You just turning into Cal inch by inch. Like, I don't know. It was interesting.
Yeah, they could show that. They could have shown like a progress, like percentage line instead. But yeah,
Yeah.
they had to show that.
It's actually a readout of Dr. Manhattan's power
Just
seeping
a
away.
Dr. Manhattan head that starts off smiling and then just looks sadder as it lowers.
And then another little just thing, the eyes again, like it would have been fine to me if he didn't have pupils. If it had just been white, it would have helped throughout these scenes. I think he would have felt more like Manhattan and less like Cal.
Yeah.
But I think they wanted him to feel like Cal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't think that final shot with him and Angela would have hit as hard if he just looked like Dr. Manhattan. I think he had to look at Cal, especially that last line.
I'm in every moment. We were together. All at once.
Oof.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that he like has this special relationship with Angela
Yeah.
that he never had with anybody else.
I mean, it's the furthest he's seen a relationship through. Like,
Well, he was with
he's-
Lori longer. He was with-
well, yeah, but I mean, like,
But, yeah,
like
actually
they have a
being
home,
engaged,
like
yeah.
children, like, and he never had that with Lori. Like, and even with Lori, like, they lived on a military base, so it probably never quite felt like home. But like, him and Angela, like, they had a house, they had a life that Dr. Manhattan never could have, because he would know that he's Dr.
Right.
Manhattan. Like, he had
Yeah.
to not be Dr. Manhattan to
with
have that.
inhibitor, he got to experience the emotions that went
Yeah.
along with it. The squids start raining down, and
Raining is gentle. Hailing.
yeah. Well, they take out the Millennium Clock in Trieu's hand, and yet everybody else seems to be kind of okay.
I thought for sure the rest of the PD was done.
Definitely a couple of cops you see get taken
Yeah.
down by it.
yeah, but like,
But most of them
Red
duck into
Scare's
the
there,
cars,
Pirate Jenny's
yeah.
there, and they're fine.
Oh yeah, well that's because at least them, like, you see one of them like duck into their cruiser, like once they realize what's going on.
Yeah.
So they're at least taking cover.
Then Lori gets to call Angela via the Dr. Manhattan phone.
Yep.
Somehow,
Knew that number.
yeah, there's a way to like call those things, which she did, and got to warn her to get out of there.
There was a half second there that I was like, how is there just a database that Adrian has access to that?
I don't know how he would have had that.
Right. It was just ready to go. I mean,
He's the world's smartest man. It's probably pretty easy to figure out.
this is true. Yeah. I don't know. It happened very seamlessly, very quickly. And then Beyond ends up in there with
Taking
her.
cover, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really get an answer if Beyond makes. Oh, she does.
She
doesn't
does.
She
Yeah,
does
we
make-
see her, in police custody.
Pirate
later.
Jenny's interviewing her in the cruiser after everything. So yeah, Beyond survives.
So yeah, in 20 years, we'll see Beyond hatch a scheme to.
Yeah, and that's where we'll get the next Watchmen series.
This Beyond's gonna go back to Karnak.
Yeah, she's like, there's more
get
sperm
pregnant.
there.
Yeah.
She's gonna inject herself with all of it. She's gonna have
The problem was,
twins.
the problem was I only had one kid. Now I need to have two.
Now I'll
or
have
three.
2 kids. Twice the pride, double the fall.
She just keeps cloning herself, and there's a whole army of Trues and Beyonds to fight all of the genetic rejects of Vite. It's your dream come true.
This is,
Season 2.
It's exactly what
If we don't get
wanted.
a clone army of Tamira Morris, then I'm not on board.
I mean, granted, how they handled the Mr. Phillips and Miss Crookshanks, like,
Yeah.
clones are on the table. They did that all right.
Which Angela, this comes from the official podcast. Damon Lindelof said the tube that was being run from her to the elephant, originally he was very stuck on the idea like it should be a clone of Angela that Trieu had.
Oh.
But the writer's room
Starts
was
to get
like,
muddled,
no,
yeah.
we've already got like all these Phillips and Crookshanks, and we've already got a Beyond clone.
That's
Let's
too
lay off
many
this."
clones.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah, so
clones
the,
is too many?
So the elephant ended up being a storage device where Trieu is dumping all these memories. Like Will's memories are in there too, as well as Angela's. We see her talk about the
So
the
the
time
elephant
capsule.
It's a receptacle.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay.
It's just a
We
big
didn't
ass
really.
external hard drive.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is that then the explanation of like her elephant imagery is just because this a lot of her ideas are built off of elephants having memory and stuff.
I think so. It's not really fully, I think, explored.
Yeah.
Poor elephant's got like a little USB port under its tusk.
This tusk pops out as
Like,
a USB port.
Hey, yeah, I need Will's memories. And then you tug on its tail and it's safe to eject the device.
Have some hay.
Oh, and then of course, during all this too, we get that great moment where Trieu kills the Cyclops
Oh,
leadership.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do what?
You're gonna kill us, right?
Oh, yeah. Of course I am.
Yeah, it's just
Her,
so good.
like, yeah, all the dialogue in Trieu when she's, like, right before the plan takes place is so spot on when she, like, goes to, like, open the hatch door and let what's left of Keen out.
Yep. Like,
She puts on the faux accent.
mm-hmm. God, yeah, and like everything up until the trying to take Dr. Manhattan's powers, like I'm on board. It's like, oh, you're gonna kill a bunch of white supremacists? Great. Couldn't think of a better fate for him. But then it's like, I'm gonna take his powers somehow. It's like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, it was really interesting to have the clan so close to getting godlike power, and as a person in the audience, you go, oh, obviously I don't want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Trieu is more ambiguous about, like, she clearly does want to have, to have some impact for good, but like Adrian wraps it up so well, is like she wants this too badly. It will end poorly no matter what. And like you go, yeah, I could see that. Even though she's not directly done anything that's really super questionable. Like, she has her own way of doing things, but nothing that she's done feels evil.
Yeah,
but
you can see it coming.
You can you can feel it under the surface.
It's very interesting that they get to tell this story and they're able to hit on this point and take out this person who's like doing everything for this power. You know, when you look back at Game of Thrones and the way Game of Thrones just ended, and like Trieu was like Daenerys, and the whole turn, it's very similar to me. And I think it's interesting that they are able to tell this story, I think, much more satisfyingly.
Yeah.
In a very efficient manner.
Oh, yeah. I agree 100% with that. Well, and it helps that Damon Lindelof wasn't trying to cut out early to go work on a Star Wars series that wasn't going to happen, that now isn't going to happen.
So, I mean, but we're wrapping up here. We're getting to the kind of the punchline of the whole show.
Yeah, where Angela runs into the Dreamland Theater.
Yeah.
And she finds Will and her family there. And it's very quiet in there, despite the downpour of frozen, which I was a little distracted by at first. I was able to appreciate the quiet scene, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, it should be much louder because if you're ever in like a Costco when it's raining, you can't escape that sound.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think it was because Adrian had it like super localized? Like, it was because nobody else, like some of the officers go down, but we don't, like, a lot of the officers are fine. Beyond is fine, but the millennial clock is
5 blocks, I think is what he says.
That's what that's what he said. But like, it's taking down this intricate machine from the sky.
So you think it would just destroy everything else?
Yeah, everything else is made out of probably lesser material in my mind.
Yeah.
So I was just trying to pass that off as like it's just super localized. He's got it focused somehow.
Oh, and that was like the worst of it was probably concentrate. Like the Millennium Clock was probably the center of it. Would be my guess.
I don't know. That was the solution I came up with. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, it was pretty quiet. But man, we finally get another scene with Angela and Will, and it's been a long time coming.
I was sitting in this exact spot almost 100 years ago. This was a silent movie house before they built it back up. My mama played the piano right over there. It burnt too. Last thing I saw before my world ended was Bass Reeves, the Black Marshal of Oklahoma. 15 feet tall and flickering black and white. Trust in the law, he said. And I did. So I took his name after Tulsa Burn. He was my hero. That's why I became a cop. Then I realized there was a reason Bass Reeves hid his face. So I hid mine too.
How did justice?
The hood. When I put it on, you felt what I felt.
Anger.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. But it wasn't. It was fear, hurt. You can't heal under a mask, Angela. Wounds need air.
It's a great exchange between them.
Yeah, and it's a good just bookend to kind of what is in a lot of ways his story as much as hers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and it goes even further too, because again, like he's talking about Bass Reeves and how that inspired him, and yeah, just a perfect bookend. Like this is, I mean, we get a little bit more after this scene, but like this is where the show started, and this is where it's ending for the most part, which is great. And then, of course, as they're leaving, one of my favorite little visuals we get, the Dreamland Theater, some of the letters are out. So all you see is Dr. M on the marquee.
Yeah, it's like Mr. F.
Which, yeah, Mr. F. Yes, as soon as I saw that, I was like, all right, this is the least subtle one, but I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, this episode didn't have as much of kind of it had a lot of Easter eggs and stuff, but not as much of the visual play as some of the other episodes did.
Which, with the way it's just wrapping everything up. It's nice to just see stuff getting executed.
Oh, yeah.
But clearly they still had some stuff to play with in the background.
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
Yeah.
And then they're going through Angela's...
Oh, and he tells her before that, he says, you can't make an omelet without breaking a couple of eggs. She's like, what does that mean? And he goes, well, he said that you would know when the time is right. The time's not right. Which, speaking of the imagery and stuff, like eggs is the big visual like motif. Like eggs and elephants, horseshoes. Those are like the three, I think.
Clovers
top.
and blue moons.
Well,
Yeah.
not only eggs, but broken eggs. Angela's character is heavily associated with broken eggs.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time we're introduced to her, she's breaking eggs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Into
Yeah,
an
that's
eggy
true.
smiley face.
Which that was a way for them to like pass off, because the smiley face is one of the visual motifs of the comic. That and the blood splatter, which we see that like both of those several times. But they wanted to create their own visual motif, and the smiley face being made out of the eggs was like a way for them to like pass on, like, this is the new one.
Yeah.
Like on a second watch, I'm going to go, wow, this is too cute. Like, come on.
Well, it's interesting too, because like even that scene with the couple, the first time we see Lady Trieu, they break the eggs.
They're selling eggs, aren't they?
Well, yeah, but then like when they're at home, I think it's the husband she drops the eggs, and then Lady Trieu comes and offers them a child.
Yeah.
Which, like, to me at least, seems to tie to like this idea of Angela eating the egg, and then it's like something getting passed on. So, yeah, they've been really consistent with the egg imagery, and even in the last episode, like when she throws the eggs down, I was like, all right, yeah, this is going to come into play next episode at some point.
Yeah.
Watch the eggs.
But yeah, you were saying like
Who watches the eggs?
New podcast. So then they go through Angela's restaurant that just seems like it's never going to get anywhere. She doesn't put any work into that place.
no, now it's half destroyed probably.
Yeah. She got a lot of squid around. I guess she could do some sushi.
Yeah, some calamari.
Yeah. But they're going through, and Topher, just for the first time apparently, puts together that
Oh yeah.
his adopted mom is Sister Night, which
and he lingers on it too.
Like,
The girls
for a
keep
long
going,
time.
but he's just like kind of fascinated by it, which makes you wonder if the cycle's going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
or he goes the opposite direction like Malcolm did and completely avoid it.
Skips a generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe, but he's got a darkness about him.
Doesn't he though?
He seems
I
troubled.
don't trust that kid. Maybe it's the long hair. I don't know.
Well,
Probably gonna get tattoos.
It's like, I don't trust him. It's just like, I mean, we've, like, Will has admitted, like, to initially thinking his feelings of anger were what fueled him. Angela's done the same, and Topher, we've seen it throughout. Like, he's less oblivious to the way things really are than his sisters.
Yeah, which I didn't really put together till just now, that Topher, I mean, in a lot of ways, is going through the same things that Angela went through as a kid. He's lost her parents to unfair circumstances and all that. No wonder she adopted them. Like, no wonder she goes to all these lengths to
give them a home,
give them as much as she possibly can.
Oh,
yeah.
So I'm curious. I don't know if they do a follow up. I'm sure Topher will have some sort of play, but I don't know where you go with that.
Yeah. And then
they get home.
Yeah, and we also see Adrian gives Wade and Lori the original Archie airship to take them home. And then the two of them arrest him for slaughtering 3 million people in New York on 11/2.
Oh man, that's a great scene too. When Adrian starts getting all indignant, it's like, "Who are you to judge me?" Blah blah, and then
music
Looking
even
Glass
starts
just
to
clocks him with a wrench.
Yeah, Looking Glass, he gets the jump on him in a way that like Rorschach couldn't, because Rorschach was trying to do that throughout the when they are approaching him at Karnak, and he can't do it because his reflexes.
Yep.
Which I was kind of like, would he really have let that happen to him? But
I think Adrian
caught
was,
up in the,
yeah, he was real caught up. Because I think the difference too in that situation, he was in control, and this, like, now he's being.
Yeah, I think through most of from him getting woken up, he's been kind of on his offhand.
Yeah, well, it's like he's being confronted, like he's being challenged in a way that, like, he clearly wasn't expecting, because he just saved the day essentially. So I think he's kind of surprised and caught off guard, which we find that he rarely is either of those. I think that's kind of what lets Wade get the drop on him. It's just that he's so taken aback by this idea that he's suddenly going to have to answer for things that he did years ago, and it throws him. And then, of course, Wade points out his true crime. It's just that he talks too much.
It's good to have Tim Blake Nelson back.
I missed him these last few episodes. I love that they set him up to do something, like, really cool, and then it never happens.
Yeah, he's absent for
because, like,
4 episodes.
we called him infiltrating the cavalry and hopefully pulling some big move, and then he never gets the chance to.
Yeah, but it got him there. I mean,
it happens a lot in the comic as well.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
These characters that you're like, oh, they're gonna do something, really have no effect on the end result.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, then Angela and her family, they all get home, and she puts the kids to bed and cleans up the mess in the kitchen, where she finds an egg in the carton that she previously threw, still intact, and remembers the clues that Dr. Manhattan had left for her. She walks outside, approaches the pool, eats the raw egg, and her foot touches the surface. And cut to black.
Bam. That last 20 seconds, the whole time I was like, oh, you son of a bitch, you're not going to show us anything conclusive, are you? And then, like, the second her foot was about to connect, it was like, bam, black screen. I was like, oh, I knew it. And my fiance was convinced that she saw the water react. I went back and I watched that clip like 10 times, and it does not. But she planted that idea in my head, and I was like, oh, yeah, maybe I saw it. And I was like, no, I need to go back and rewatch this a bunch. Like, and I even zoomed in on the screen and everything. I was like, no, it's definitely one of those things where, like, I feel like it was shot that way too, where like people would like kind of Mandela themselves essentially and convince themselves that they'd seen that. And yeah, but I mean, like I'm glad that we don't get a conclusive answer. Like, what a perfect ending.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So I'm curious, what do you think it goes one way or another?
I think so. I mean, they do, and like we said, like the visual clues, like from the promo artwork with like Angela being bathed in the blue light, like all of the egg imagery we've gotten, the Dr. M on the marquee, either heralding that he's still alive or that she is him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the too. Like I've seen some people complain about like not getting like more detailed explanations one way or the other, but like I think that's part of the beauty of this show.
Yeah,
is that it gives us the benefit of the doubt. It like there's a concept in improv and comedy in general that you always want to play to the top of your audience's intelligence. You always want to assume that they're smart enough to comprehend these things, and this show does that. And I feel like so many shows spoon feed people like because they feel that pressure to over explain things, and it's not necessary. Like they're like, is it disappointing that we didn't get an on-screen revelation about Lube Man? Not so much that it ruined the show for me. Like but again, I mean, it still got wrapped up. You just have to know to go out of your way to look for it, which again I think is a thing that rewards people who know what this is coming into it.
Yeah.
And I mean, because again, like until you mentioned PDpedia, the first episode that we did, like that, I wasn't aware of that. And again, like it's just one of the many details of this show. Like it's a perfect way to incorporate the prose section from the comic books into a functional way for now, in this medium, and that's amazing to me. Like that's. I don't know that I ever would have thought to do that, because for so long it's been, oh, Watchmen's unfilmable, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, to an extent it still is, but like, this is like, Lindelof's proven that that's not the case now.
Yeah.
Even if it's not an adaptation of the comic directly, it's a follow-up, like, we've seen, like, how well it can be done. Both using just the limitations of the screen, but also using supplemental materials in addition to that.
I think, if anything, the Watchmen HBO series speaks to the mastery of the original content. What
absolutely.
What Alan Moore was able to do more or less by himself, it has taken a team of top of their line, just masters of craft, to recreate the same thing in a different medium.
Yeah, he set the bar really high.
Goodness gracious. And I still don't think you could do it in a movie format. There's not enough time.
Yeah, it'd be trickier to do that for sure.
I think this was the best way to do it. I think they used all of the resources at hand to the best of their ability, and I think the product speaks for itself.
Yeah.
But
very much agreed. I think this is as perfect of a season / series that you can get. It's definitely like in my top, 3 series of all time at this point. I can't wait to like go back and start from the beginning and watch it all unfold again. And I think that's like, again, that speaks to the comic as well, because when you finish that, you're like, oh, let me go back and see all the pieces fall together in front of my eyes. And yeah. And like you said, you do not play to anybody but like the smartest people in the room. And that's what Damon Lindelof says about writing in general. I think this and Better Call Saul does it as well. I know that writing team does, where they don't want to over explain things. They just want you to like, hey, you can go and figure this out if you want to. You can go back and rewatch this. There's the scene in episode 4 where Adrian lands on Earth, and we know that now, but they did not have to cut back to it and show it.
Yeah.
They didn't have to like show that flashback. You're like, once you rewatch it, you're like, oh yeah, this is that happening. And there's plenty of things like that where you can look back and be like, oh yeah, there's that. They didn't have to spoon feed it all to us while it's happening or at the end.
But I think that is also because this is a show that requires your attention.
Mm-hmm.
If this was a sitcom, you can't assume people are paying attention to every bit of what's happening. But because this show starts with a massacre most people didn't know actually happened. Mm-hmm. Like, it commanded your attention from the beginning all the way through. And I really don't think, I'm looking through all the episodes right now, and I don't think there's a dip at any point. There is no odd one out.
I think at the time we were not as thrilled with episode 4, but I think in retrospect and upon a rewatch, I think you'll find a lot of things there. You're just like ignorant to the first time. So,
which I fully anticipated even watching it.
Mm-hmm.
I was going, I'm sure this will be important later, but it's a tonal shift from the first 3, especially coming off of episode 3, which was Laurie's introduction, which was just really powerful.
Yeah. Well, because 4 that's the episode that starts with Lady Trieu at the farm, right?
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
No, I think we should just leave it there, as perfect as can be. But I know we're not going to, because I think, Ryan, you and I are going to actually go back and look at the original book and explore it kind of issue by issue in a Watchmen, Who Watches book club.
Yeah, I have made it a little ways into the comic, but I want to start and just talk chapter for chapter, kind of like what we've done so far.
Yeah.
Because I think this show definitely inspires me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think this show and the comic warrants an actual deep dive into each episode and each chapter.
So yeah, I know a lot of people who have said that they're just completely unfamiliar with the source material until this show, and the show is making them interested in doing that. So if you're one of those people and you want to join us, we look forward to doing that. I can't say exactly when it's going to start. Look for that sometime, I would say, next year, in the time between this and a potential maybe second season or not. We don't know if it'll just stand on its own or be Schrodinger's season where it exists and it doesn't exist.
Manhattan both is alive and isn't.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're doing that. And we are also covering The Mandalorian still, which that is just delivering episode upon episode right now. And it's very exciting to do that. So you can find that show alongside the feed for this show and on our main feed. We are at Who Watches Pod on Twitter. We're also on Instagram and on Facebook. And episodes of this show, along with The Mandalorian show, can be found on any podcatcher of your choice, on Apple Podcasts. We're also on YouTube, where we post every episode of this show. And Ryan, where can people find more of your work?
You can find me at Harbjagen, HARBJAGEN on Twitter. What about you, Dustin?
You can catch me on DustinMeadowsComedy.com, my blog, all my social media links, upcoming shows, all that good stuff. Right there, DustinMeadowsComedy.com.
Perfect. And as of right now, that is all of HBO's Watchmen, the first season. But we look forward to joining you guys in any form that you want to keep following us and following anything that we're covering. Be on the lookout. We'll make announcements as those things come along. And until the meantime, thank you and good night.
Quis custodiet ipsos custodes?